Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Richest Men in Town podcast. I'm Mike Freeman, and along with my good friend and co-host Tyler Gould, we're excited to welcome you to our little podcast project. Tyler and I are just a couple of middle-aged husbands and dads driven to live our best lives. We want to be better every day, so here we'll be sitting down with great people. Not famous people, but great people that we admire, to learn their secret to living the rich life. Probably not the rich life you're thinking of. Our guests come in humbled and surprised at the invitation and hopefully leave feeling proud and grateful, realizing just how good they really have it. So pull up a chair, stay a while, and raise a glass with us as we toast our guests to the richest men in town. All right, Tyler Gould, another installment on the Richest Men in Town podcast just went down. Your friend, and by friend, that's like an understatement, or like all caps, italicized, friend, blood brother, James Paschall, graced us with a visit. Man, talk to me about why you love this dude, and what are our listeners going to get from time spent with James?
Man, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that I hope people get from their time with James. I mean, I laughed so hard I cried at a couple of points, and I actually cried a couple of times too, just from some of the things that James was talking about. So
now our listeners won't hear the laughter that much because it was so bad we had to actually pull ourselves away from the mic.
Yeah, I had to find a quiet spot, or else I was gonna blow.
And then it was one of those where I couldn't look at you, because if I look at you laughing that hard, then we're gonna be a wreck, right?
It was trouble, man. It was trouble. But yeah, I mean, it was fun. James came on the show and he delivered. You know, I've known him for a long time, and I've respected him for a long time. He's been a guy that's always been really steady and kind of a voice of reason, sort of an old soul, you know, is how I would describe James when we were younger. And as he's gotten older and he has a family of 5 kids, you know, he is, to me, the model of what a dad could be and should be with his kids.
So I heard you describe that back in the early days. James has been on our hit list for the show.
Yeah.
And you described, hey, I got this guy and he is the best dad I know. And I was like, well, come on, I'm the best dad, you know, but like, no, seriously, James is all about the dad, and that's what he wants. That's all he's ever wanted. And you feel it.
Yeah.
In fact, if listeners listen closely, he just gave us 2 hours. In the background, you can hear 4 kids doing their thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I know. It's so funny, man, because, you know, in our time with James, he talks about kind of his journey in life, and his goal is to be a great dad. And I was listening to him talk about that, and I thought, man, how cool is it that someone is so dialed into the right priority, right? We think about, like, what are you going to do in our careers and what's happening with this, what's happening with that. And James, his number one concern is, I want to be the best possible dad I could be.
And we're not talking about one of many goals or one of many priorities. I think a lot of us have being a good dad in that mix. That's the only thing on his list.
Yeah.
And it's not being a good dad. He wants to be the best dad.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I love that you use the word journey.
Yeah.
Because a lot of our guests paint a picture of a journey. I don't know if anybody does it better than James. And I know that sounds like hyperbole. I can tell you, this guy was hot from the pre-show. We knew we had some great stuff, but I love that sense of journey, because he'll say, look, I'm going to tell you about my parents, but this is where they started.
Yeah.
This isn't where they ended.
Yeah.
So don't judge this. We all have a starting point. It's not where you start that matters. It's where you finish. It's where you end. And not to be a spoiler alert, you've never heard a finish like the one James paints a picture of in this one.
Yeah, I would totally agree. And I love, you know, one of the things that I take away from James too is just that, you know, it's okay to be wrong. We just got to admit that we're wrong and then try to do right. And I love that. You know, I just think that there's there's so many good lessons. You and I were talking, we have so many notes and quotes that we wrote down from James, and I'm excited to actually go back and re-listen to this and soak it back in again a second time.
Oh yeah. This will definitely, it's ironic because we just posted a couple of best ofs, and here we are in 2021, season 2 of The Richest Men in Town. And right out of the gate, James gives us an instant classic. I've got a huge circle around the word content.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
He uses it a couple of times, and I don't think I've ever seen anybody more content with where he is right now. He's reluctantly said he can go. He doesn't want to go. He's got some things, he's got some dreams, and we all do. But he's in a place where he's done trying to do it his way.
Yeah.
He's done trying to do it James's way. He's surrendered.
Yeah, and he uses that word, Mike, surrender and submission. And he said, when I was younger, I pushed against that all the time. And now that I've embraced that, I'm content and I'm happy, and I know what happiness is. And man, that's cool.
Yeah, love of his wife, loving and honoring his parents. It's the whole package. It's everything that this program's about, and it makes me super proud to be a part of it. Makes me super proud to know you, because you can connect me with folks like James. And I say it at the end, I'll say it at the beginning. I never met that guy, but that guy is his brother.
Yeah,
his family.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I don't get it. I can't explain it. Maybe it's the magic room of Zoom. I don't know. But man, I just felt the connection. And there are a couple of places in there, you're right, where tears are shared across the board.
Absolutely. It was a great night tonight, Mike. I enjoyed it. I appreciate you. I'm glad to be back for season 2 of Richest Men in Town. And it's good to be back live with guests. It's
so great. So great. And we've got exciting things. We've got some exciting guests. And there's no better way to start 2021 than with James Paschall. So to our listeners, thanks for being there. Some of you from the beginning, some are just jumping in now, wondering what this is. This is the Richest Men in Town podcast. In the spirit of good old George Bailey, it's about being better. Nobody does it like James Paschall. So to our listeners, take some notes. Let's do something with this, Tyler Gould, right? James has given us a gift. We're going to do everything we can to let the world hear it. Please, please, please enjoy your time with James Paschall on this episode of The Richest Men in Town.
Hey, so let me ask you this question, Mike Freeman. I was watching the other night the Tiger Woods documentary on HBO, and it was interesting. It explains a lot, but there's
does it get into stuff?
Well, I haven't seen episode 2 yet. That's when it gets into the real nitty gritty.
So right now it's just his rise.
Yeah. But at the very end of this episode, it starts to allude to some of these things. But it's talking about his father passing away, and it said there's someone on there that was doing some commentary, a friend of his, or probably a former friend now, I would imagine, after spilling the beans like that. But he said, when your father passes and you're not nearby, it brings up a lot of guilt, no matter how close you guys were. And I just thought, that's an interesting. Just made me think,
like physically nearby.
Yeah.
Not in the room.
Right. Like you're just not there. You're gone. You're wherever Tiger was. But it just made me think about relationships, and where we're at. We talked a few episodes back about forgiveness. I think I want to make 2021 sort of the year of the bridge building, right? I've been an off and on bridge builder. I'm a terrible carpenter, as it, so they tend to be a little wobbly. They tend to,
like Indiana Jones kind of bridge.
Yeah, they tend to break,
like those rope ones.
Yeah, they tend to break pretty easily. There's definitely crocodiles below. You know what I mean? It's not easy, but yeah, I just thought about that. distance is always physical distance is tough, but emotional distance maybe is even tougher, So
Hey, you want me to share with you a cool little practice that I've started? 2021.
Yeah, let's hear it.
All right, so you got your spirit journal, right? Whatever that looks like on a daily, whatever setup, whatever structure you have in place. Maybe it's no structure. You come across as maybe a no structure kind of guy where you just open it up and you just start writing.
Yes, that is
right?
me.
I am a very, I've got a thing. I do this thing, right?
Okay.
Part of the thing that I do is I put a to-be list.
Oh, we're like Gordon B. Hinckley.
Every day, I after prayer, after some study, I trying to get my bearings on the day.
Okay.
Right across the header, kind of breaking news style.
Okay.
I give myself things to be. And I think I've alluded to this on the show, right? There are just some things that I want people to say about me when I'm dead.
Okay, yeah.
Right? Like that guy. Hey, we're all dying, right? We might as well look ourselves in the mirror and say, what are you going to be today? Go be that guy.
Yeah.
And you figure if you're doing that every day, or at least trying, or at least writing down the words, sometimes you swing and miss. Sometimes you don't even swing. But every once in a while, right, if you say you're going to be strong, then, temptation comes along and you resist the temptation and you feel strong. You say you're going to be healthy. That word's kind of bouncing around in your head. And when someone says, hey, you want a soda? You're like, no, because I'm healthy.
Yeah.
Right? Seth Godin says that. You want to do something. You want to make a change. You want to change a habit. You want to, resolution. Then use your language to describe yourself as that person already, as if you're already doing it.
Self-talk is huge, right?
Like assume the role, right?
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I don't drink soda because I'm healthy. I know you're off the soda for a couple months.
Yeah, I'm approaching a year, my friend. I am approaching a year.
Ooh.
Yeah.
So I've got 5 S's in my head, right?
Okay.
No snacks. No soda.
I like that.
Right? This one hurts, man.
Oh boy. I'm
no seconds.
Oh, okay. I like that. Yeah.
No Slurpees.
I haven't had a Slurpee for a while either.
And the last S is that I'm going to skip a meal.
Like every day?
Yeah, I'm going to skip a meal.
All right.
It's a simple calorie game, right?
Yeah.
I'm not like intermittent fasting or scientific about it. I'm just like, you know what? If I don't eat one meal, chances are calorie count's going to be lower than what I'm burning. So
now listen to this. If you had those 5 S's and they were working for you, you were working them, and then we mixed in, you jumped on the train with me on some running. We'd be solid.
Yeah. I'm you know what? I got to be honest, last couple of days I haven't wrote down that I'm a runner.
Did you write down you're a swimmer?
No, I think I've hung up the goggles for a little bit. It's cold out there. It's cold.
Yeah. I agree. It's too cold.
Like the idea of like getting in a pool, even if the pool's heated, you got to get out of the car. You got to do all this stuff.
There's a whole process.
And then you're wet.
Yeah.
I don't care how warm the pool is. Eventually, you got to get out, and it's January. So
yeah,
I might pick up my swimmer title in June.
Okay, I like that. Yeah. I like that.
The reason why I'm kind of sharing some of this stuff is because I really dig where we're going tonight.
Yeah.
We've got James Paschall on, right? He's coming.
Yep.
Friend of yours.
Yeah.
And I got to tell you, I don't want to hype this, but I'm going to.
Okay.
Top 3 pre-shows. Top 3 pre-shows. And we've been at this a while, my friend. We've been like, we're getting to almost 40 episodes.
Yeah.
So when I say top 3 pre-shows, that's setting it, man.
That is
I hope your boy delivers. I hope he delivers.
Yeah. If not, we edit quite a bit. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because it would be awful to be all like so hyped up on the pre-show and then it just kind of,
Yeah, he's a good dude and it'll be fun. We'll have fun tonight, one way or the other, right? So it'll be good. Yeah, I'm excited about it, man.
So what's moving in you as we get ready to let James in on our conversation?
I mean, well, maybe your 5 S's speak to this a little bit, but I came across this quote the other day, from John Wayne, by the way.
Done. If John Wayne says it, get in line, Pilgrim.
It's the Duke, right? So
The Duke.
yeah.
Wait,
he says,
hold on. Did John Wayne is that Pilgrim? Did I do that right?
Yeah, I think, yeah. I mean, he didn't sound like John Wayne, but I think he said Pilgrim. Yeah.
Okay.
Sure. Right.
I can say that, right? In 2021, that's not PC, right? Pilgrim, there's nothing wrong with Pilgrim.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you're offending the Pilgrims, the Pilgrim group that's out there.
I think they're gone, right? They've assimilated.
Maybe. I mean, let's hope. All right. So this is what he says. He says, a man's got to have a code, a creed to live by, no matter what his job is. And a code. I read that and I just thought it was kind of interesting. I thought, all right, if John Wayne, who maybe is a little bit of a controversial figure these days, I don't know. I mean, but we'll sweep that under the rug for now. But if John Wayne says it, right? I mean, maybe it's something to consider. So I ask you this question, Mike Freeman. What is your code?
I've got. He says code. I've got some core beliefs.
All right, let's hear it.
And they're actually on the wall in my office. Man, this would be really easy if I was in my office, right? I could just turn around and read them. But I will not play small.
Okay.
Right, Maryanne Williamson. Right.
Yeah.
You playing small doesn't serve humanity.
I like it. Actually,
when you step up and try to be great, you liberate and you give the green light to others to do the same.
Yeah.
I alter the trajectory of the person I meet.
Okay. I like that.
Right.
Yeah.
The idea being good day, bad day, you meet Mike Freeman, you're going to walk away with hopefully a little spring in your step, hopefully a little charged up, a little ready to take on some things.
Nice. I like that.
The right thing is rarely easy, instant, or cheap. Right?
Yeah.
There's a few things, right? There's a few of them.
That's good.
How about you?
I mean,
Tyler Gould, what's your code?
I bring up the John Wayne quote because I've seen myself sitting without a code now, right? I mean, I think that I've got some core beliefs, I think that I want to be the kind of person that treats people with love and kindness and respect. And I want people to walk away from their time with me feeling like better about themselves, And so, yeah, I mean, I think I've got some core things, but I read that and I thought, man, maybe I need to get into the lab and do a little development on my own personal code.
There is something to be said for doing just that, like the intentionality.
Yeah.
And actually being like, not only putting it down on paper, maybe in the journal, but actually being vocal and letting people in on where you're coming from. Right. Like I'm Mr. One of mine is there is no lid.
Okay.
And anyone that's worked with me has probably been able to walk away with that story. Yeah. Mr. Freeman. Yeah. That guy, no lids on kids.
I feel like
the idea is that you and I put limits on ourselves.
Right.
Right. I've told you about the fleas.
Right.
For our listeners, some research being done. There's a what is it? Petri dish, maybe? Yeah, a beaker.
It's a beaker.
Scientists throw fleas in the beaker, and they put a lid on the beaker, and they observe the fleas, and the fleas jump up and they tap their heads. If fleas have heads, I don't know. They tap their heads on the lid and you can hear it, and they're watching it. And then pretty soon the tapping stops and they've learned that there's a lid.
Right.
And so they've conditioned their jump to be just under the lid because bumping your head up against the lid isn't fun. Right.
Yeah.
So the scientists think, that's interesting. Let's take the lid off. Tyler, what do you think would happen if you took the lid off on a beaker full of fleas?
Well, you would hope those fleas would just push themselves above and beyond the rim to freedom.
It would be like Braveheart, right? It would be freedom.
I imagine the fleas giving a speech similar to Braveheart right before that.
Absolutely not.
Hmm.
They have conditioned themselves with the limitation that no longer exists, and their performance is just under the imaginary lid.
Yeah.
Now that is a flea. You, my friend, myself, we are slightly more complicated and slightly more capable than fleas.
Let's hope, right? Let's hope that's the case. Yeah.
So when we look at our lives, when there is a limit, when there is a limitation, that lid has been self-imposed. There is no lid, right? Think of the great people that we know and the things they've been able to accomplish. Think of just the idea that in 2021, impossible is nothing.
But and let me say this about that idea of the lid, because I think if we go back and we looked at all of these episodes that we've had with different people, and the common theme when we ask them, you know, what do you think about coming on this show with us, is I've got nothing to offer you. Like I haven't done anything. But the lens with which we view our lives, right, is a little different. Because then when we have this conversation, we understand that these guys have accomplished a lot of things. And maybe it's not the big grand thing that, you and I think that, hey, we need to make $1 million or we need to do this or we need to do that. But when we talk about their lives, they've accomplished some things. The lids aren't there, I guess.
And that's the kind of look. You and I, our payday is that halfway through this show or something, we see a change in the eyes of our guest and they realize, man, I got it pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's the lid literally being taken off, right?
Well, and let me tell you this, if we can talk about James Paschall, who we're gonna let him in the room here right now.
And we're going to ask what his code is.
We're going to ask what his code is. And this guy is, I just feel like he knows, he's very aware of the blessings in his life. And that's one of the things I love about James. So why don't we open the door and let James join us on the richest man in town.
All right, here we go. You got it?
I got it.
Boom.
There he is.
James in the flesh. Welcome to the richest men in town, brother.
Hey guys, how you doing?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well.
Hey, James, I just need to let you know what you're coming into, okay?
Okay.
I hope you are clutch, because I just announced to our thousands of listeners, minus a couple thousand, that your pre-show was like top 3 of the pre-shows that we've had on this program, brother. And so I, by extension, said we're probably in for a wild ride tonight. So no pressure.
I'm in.
All right, man.
Well, we warned you, right? You come onto the show and it's a moving train. So Tyler Gould, hit him with your question.
So here it is, James. I was doing some reading earlier today, and I came across this quote by the great philosopher John Wayne. Right? Oh. John Wayne, man. It's the Duke, right? And this is what he says. So he said, a man's got to have a code, a creed to live by, no matter what his job is. And so I asked Mike this question after reading this quote. Mike Freeman, what is your code? Now I'm going to ask you the same question, James. What is your code? Or do you have a code?
Do you have a code?
I do have a code.
Okay, let me hear it.
Growing up the way that I did, living the way that I did, I came up with this, well, let's call it the creed. I call it a philosophy, but we'll call it that code, right?
Okay.
I extend to others the mercy and the temperament and the respect that I would hope would be given to me if I were to ever fall or stumble or be in a situation where I couldn't control the situation. I like that. Because the temperament that I give to others is really, I just want it returned to me someday when I'm in that same position.
I love that, dude. You know what that reminds me of? and I'm not gonna recite a poem because I don't have the mental capacity.
Poetry hour with Tyler Gould.
It reminds me of the poem, and I shared it with you, Mike. Right? It's about the gentleman with the lamp.
Hold
right?
on, can you know this? Can you recite this? Can you recite it?
Yeah, I can't, dude. It's like right now I'm trying to blank, dude.
You need some Prevagen. You need some Prevagen, man.
I
Prevagen from the jellyfish.
In a big way.
This episode is brought to you by Prevagen.
Right.
Okay, but yeah, what's the premise?
So the premise is you have a person who's got a lamp, right? And along the path, he meets someone whose lamp is no longer burning. And so he stops and he lights that guy's lamp for him. Later on, a tempest came and shook the world about, right? But when the winds had ceased, my lamp was out. But back to me the stranger came and lighted my lamp from his, right? That's it, right? I mean, the hope is that we're on the path, we extend mercy to somebody or everyone that we come in contact with, right? And then at some point in time, we're going to be on the outs. And the hope is that same mercy will be extended to us. That's what I thought of when you talked about your philosophy, James.
So Tyler, when you shared that with me the first time, I don't know what kind of emotional state I was in.
Yeah.
And James, I need to warn you, emotions are right at the surface for me right now, right? There's just stuff. It's all good stuff, but I'm a wreck. So I was in one of those funks. I was in one of those moods when you sent that poem to me for the first time. And I started reading it and I had to stop. And I handed the phone to my wife and she had to continue reading it because it gets to me, right? It gets to me. We've all been there.
Yeah.
We've been both of those people.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
James, I'm excited with a code like that. I'm excited to hear the journey, right? I'm excited to hear the story. But let me ask you this.
Yes.
When our mutual good friend Tyler Gould reaches out to you and says, "Hey, I got this thing. It's a podcast. I don't know if you're a podcast listener. I don't know if you've probably, maybe you've been on 20, maybe you're a veteran podcast guest. But when Tyler reaches out to you and says, "Hey, I got this podcast called The Richest Men in Town, and you are it," what does that make you think?
You know, the initial was, well, what does this mean? You know, but I knew that coming from Tyler, I knew it was something of import, right? I didn't think it was just like, you know, oh, this is just work related. He's just talking about, you know, how to make money. Let's talk about being the richest man financially, you know? And so I looked at it and I thought, oh, I get what he's saying. But then I was very humbled because I thought, well, if he considered me in this, that means something, you know? So I was honored very much and humbled very much. And then excited, you know, because I love Ty, you know, absolutely. And if he considers me or if he views me in a way in that vein, hey, man, right on. I'm doing something right.
There you go.
So that's what I felt.
Hey, Tyler, can I call you Ty the rest of the night, or is that just like?
Hey, James started it, man. You can finish it. Yeah, absolutely.
Hey, Mr. Gould, you talk to me now. Why James?
I mean, look, you said it yourself. I mean, pre-show call top 3. I mean, you don't have to spend a lot of time with James to love James, and so I think that's one. I've been lucky in that I've spent a lot of years with James, and you know we've had a lot of adventures, misadventures, and the like. And James is he's one of those guys that's you know, I kind of feel like James has always been sort of a steadying force in all the things that we've been through together. He's always had his head on straight, and he's always had like this moral compass that I admired, and I still admire to this day. And I'll tell you one thing too about James. James he's a family man with several little children running around, and he's what I would define as one of the best fathers that I've seen.
Well, James, if I was going to order up a compliment to make my day, best father is not a bad title.
No, absolutely.
Give me the breakdown. What's the what's your family?
Well, I've been with my wife for 31 years. Not
wins.
Married.
Yeah,
Not married that long, but we've been together. She was 15 when I met her. It was love at first sight.
Okay, hold up. That's
Absolutely.
a story. We're gonna put a pin in that, and we're coming back to that.
Okay.
We'll come back to that. Okay.
So we were together. We've been together since the beginning. We have 5 beautiful kids. I have a soon-to-be 20-year-old Ashton. Skylar is 16. Chloe is 11. Lola is 10. Shiloh is 5. And it is my life, man. It is, not trying to get ahead, but you build this concept of what your life's going to be. All I've ever wanted to be is a dad, but not just a dad who has kids and kind of, I go to work, you take care of this. I wanted to be a dad that affected, evolved, helped, guided my children. And I have that. So it's a beautiful thing, man. It's a beautiful thing.
I love that.
Oh man. So I'm already lost, right? I'm already like, okay, I need to know where that comes from.
Well,
like that. I want to be a dad. Where does that come from?
Let me put it in the perspective of this. My parents were very young when they had me, very young. They were very young and they were convoluted, and life was very, kids having kids is a hard thing, right?
Yeah.
And let me preface with this. My parents are the greatest parents on this planet, but it didn't necessarily start out like that. They were kids. They had a kid. I was a child. I had wants. I had needs. I had things that I felt should have been a certain way. Sometimes they were, sometimes they weren't. More times they weren't, in the early years. Pivotal things changed. And I realized that I woke up one day and I saw my father in a way that I'd never seen him before. And it was probably really the first time I saw him as my father. And I said, that's who I want to be. That man and his awareness of his children, not just in the passing of how's your day? You doing all right? Did you do your homework? But involved in where my heart was. That's who I wanted to be. So when I became, a husband first, I was like, when I have kids, I'm not going to be this detached parent. I'm going to be a dad, I'm going to be hands-on. I'm going to be involved, and it's like really like, you plan goals, you have things that you want to do. Really? Hey man, I just want to be a really good dad. I just want to rock that out. I want them to look at me and go, prime example. I'm like, hey, I'm going to get on this podcast tonight. And my Skylar's like, that's awesome, man. And I'm like, high five, I'm stoked that you said that, because that matters to me, it matters to me the way that I affect them and how they view me, because, I'm not trying to be the ideal view of a good dad. I want to be a good dad. And sometimes that's, you got to be the hard guy. You got to have that sentimental side. You have to be understanding. I think that if I have anything, I'm understanding, because I've never forgotten what it was like to be a young man, to be a child, and to have need. So that's where that comes from.
Hey, James, if somebody's going to listen to this podcast, right? We have people that listen to this that are in
all over the world, by the way.
We do, actually.
Yeah. We're global. We're worldwide.
It's
global.
Yeah. Right.
We're big. We're big in Ireland.
We are.
Very nice.
Yeah. So,
hey, that's my favorite demographic is Ireland. So
yeah,
good.
We're just going to give a shout out to Ireland right now. But James, there's people that are listening to this that are all over the place, right? Like some have no kids, some have big families, some are just starting families, some are looking down the road saying, hey, eventually I want to have a family. I mean, what would you say to someone listening to this that says, man, the thing that's freaking me out the most is, how am I going to be a father? How do I do this? What would you say to them?
And Tyler, I'm thinking of Nick Foote, right?
Absolutely.
A month ago, we assembled some guests and brought in my nephew, right? Sat him down virtually. He was expecting his first child, so we poured into him, right? So what would you say? What would you say to that guy?
I would say, hey man, if you're planning on being a father, here's something you need to remember. Regardless of your upbringing, you either view your father as that's the guy that I want to be, or you look at him like, I am never going to do that. I'm going to be much better, right? But then you come to a place where you realize your father lets you live your life. He lets you be who you are supposed to be. Conflict aside, because as a dad, you always want to give that good advice. And as a kid, you always want to be like, you don't know what you're talking about. I just want people to remember that you got to let your kid live their life because you got to live yours, right? You guide them, you teach them, and then you have to have that comfort level to go, okay, now I'm going to let them go. And it doesn't mean you're letting them go and you're high-fiving them for all their decisions, but you're confident in the fact that you've done your task. You've been what they need you to be. And then you kind of go, okay, this is it. But in the interim, love them like nothing else, man. Love them like nothing else and make them know that, hey, man, regardless of what this world will tell you, you are amazing. And that's it, man. That's the key to success. And it doesn't always work out the way I want it to, but the model, it's pretty pat, it's there. They get there eventually. I don't have my father anymore, but in my latter years, I must have called him like 25 times and said, hey man, I get it now. I get it. I appreciate what you did. Because in the moment you're like, man, you're just jamming me up. You're just trying to harsh my mellow, Dad. Get off. And then, you have your own kids and they're at their teenagers and you're like, oh man, he was right. And it's not even a bitter pill to swallow at that point. You're just like, all right, hey Dad, love you, man. Got it. I see it now. And he just laughs. Yeah. Good for you. I'm like, thanks, Dad.
Hey, how long ago did you lose him?
2 years, 3 months. Not that I keep track, but 2 years, 3 months.
Well, James, I want to, I did have the pleasure of meeting your dad a few times, and I've met your mom as well, and you're a product of them, and they should be really proud. Let me ask you this question, James. You've got Ashton, right? Who is 20 or about to be 20?
He'll be 20 in May.
20 in May. So he's sort of like 1 foot out the door, right? So I mean,
yes.
he's looking at what his life is going to be, right? He's starting to do those adult things. Now we're the three of us are all kind of in the same boat on a certain level, right? Like I've got a daughter at college. I got a son out serving a mission for our church. Mike's got his oldest, who's just getting ready to leave the nest and go serve a mission and be gone for 18 months. Mm-hmm. So how are you? Talk to me a little bit about that, like watching your oldest transition into adulthood, and then maybe drop a little wisdom on Mike, or else he's going to start blubbering at some point during this.
Well, and Tyler, if I can just add to it, like I love that idea of let them be them.
Mm-hmm.
And James, that's really easy to say, right? But when them doesn't line up with what I want them to be.
Hey, man.
Right?
Hey,
help me understand that.
Hey, man, I can speak to that 100%. Ashton's my oldest. So I have this philosophy: firstborn children, I guess, but I'm a man, so it's a son. All your mistakes are made with that first one. You are overbearing more so. You are more controlling with that one. You make all the things that you kind of pacify and understand with your latter children, you blow it with the first one. So you have this relationship with this first one where he's going, why didn't I get that? What about this? And you're like, hey man, what can I say? I didn't know, But Ashton
so your 5-year-old's got the best, right?
Oh, she's in there like swimwear, man. She's like, I've already figured it out. And I'm like, yes, you have. Just smile at me. Give me a hug. Tell me it's cuddle o'clock. And I'm like, I'm done. I'm
Cuddle
in.
o'clock.
She will, man. She'll just walk in there. She's like, Daddy, it's cuddle o'clock. I'm like,
Forget it. What do you want? Buy her the Audi right now.
yeah. I'm like, here, let me just write you this. Just cash it when you want to. I don't know. But Ashton is I'm passion and logic. Cammie is the opposite, but in a good way. You know what I mean? But she sees things in a different view than I do. Analytical, maybe, is what I would say. Yeah. Analytical and concise is her. Ashton is a perfect meld of those two. So when things would become rough, just like his mother, oh my God, he would infuriate me because his arguments made sense. They were logical. And I never wanted to be the dad who said, well, it's because I'm your dad. Yeah. So you don't have a choice, because that's what my father said to me. And I thought, oh, I'll do better. Right.
Yeah.
And it got convoluted with him. It was number one, he's the firstborn. So I already made a lot of mistakes. I drew this box in my head of what I wanted for him. And what I wanted for him was to be better than me because I already knew that he was. I wanted him to have more than me because I knew that he could. And then it didn't go that way. He didn't want those things. He didn't want the guideline that I had. You have a kid, you're like, well, this is how they're going to be. And here's the list. And I'm going to have them. And they're going to do the blah, 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 blah.
Yeah. Like you're ordering it. Like you're ordering it from a store, right?
Right.
Yeah. Right. I'm going to get a kid with these specs and everything's going to be cool.
Right. And I'm going, and he's not going to be messed up like I was. He will be perfect. And then the imperfection comes and you're like, well, what did I do wrong? How did I get here? And then you want to start, and then the confrontation starts, the conversation start of, well, no, you're wrong. And he's like, but this is this. And I'm like, well, you're still wrong. And he and I, there was a time where we didn't talk at all because I was at the point with him where if I talk to him, it's always going to get volatile. He's telling me something. I'm telling him he's wrong. And it was just, we were in an impasse. So I had to kind of pull back from the situation. And I've said this already, and I had to realize that my son is a beautiful, perfect vessel, regardless of me. And me trying to control it is silly because I know better. And I have to allow him to live the life that he was called to because I was allowed to. And I see how my parents one day just they didn't let go, but they kind of cut the leash of we're in charge. And they let me be what I was supposed to be. And that went the way it went. We all know that. Once you get out there, you're like, wow, I'm going to run with the wolves now, man. I'm going to be this, I'm going to be that.
It's like the kite string, right? It's like the analogy of that kite string. You cut the kite string and everyone thinks the kite goes flying off. The kite goes crashing down.
Right.
But I can't help but think like, if I teach them correct principles and they will, they'll govern themselves. And I think that there's this point in time where it's like what you're describing, James, is that you, as a parent, you put all these things out there and you think that you've got to live this way, but at some point they've got to figure out why living the way you did was good. Right.
And that's exactly it. Because you can say all those things and be all those things, but if you don't live like that, what are you showing them? You know what I mean? And our relationship, it's so much better. I'm not high-fiving him for all the stuff he does because I tell him, hey, 99% of the stuff if you're doing, I'm in disagreement with. But it's your life. You want to be an adult? I will treat you as such. Be an adult. But here's what I know. Because you get in this, I got in this gray of, did I mess up? Am I a bad dad? Did I blow it? No, I'm not. I'm a great dad. I know that. I had to get past the point of seeing where I couldn't control the situation anymore and just allow it to be what it is. Give to God what is God's, right? He knows, right? He knows. He already knew. I'm trying to fix things based on my thought process. I just had to let him go. And Ash and I, we talk now, we communicate. We communicate on a level that is equal, and I just let him, he'll tell me things. I'm like, well, I don't know about that, man, but hey, are you happy? I'm happy. All right, then do that, but be safe,
And I think the thing that you lose when you battle, right, is that relationship is gone.
It is.
That ability to communicate, that ability to, like, all they see is the battle and they don't understand. Even if you're battling out of love, if it's a battle, eventually the casualty is the relationship you have with that child.
Yeah.
And I think there's a point, right, that maybe we've experienced in our own growing up, or that you just have to love them, right?
Yeah.
No matter what, right? At some point, even when they're doing things that you disagree with, the full court press, like you said, Mike, pushes them further away, right? At some point, maybe it's just a
Tyler. I don't know if you remember this, but you just said we just have to love them, and I got to tell you this story. So James, Gould home was where we just hung out there, right? The Gould family was the family you could go visit at 10 o'clock at night on a Friday. You can just drop in. You don't have to call. You don't have to do anything. Well, one night we've got our kids. We're over at the Gould home, and we load up our kids, take them home, and my kid had one of their toys.
I remember this, man.
So it's not about me. I need therapy, right? I've got dad issues. I got issues, right? My dad was a criminal. So I saw this and was like, I snapped. And I literally, in my mind, was like, hell no, we don't have criminals. And I grabbed that kid. I put the kid in the car. We went back to the Gould house. I made that kid give the toy back. We drove back to our house. I made him grab a present under the Christmas tree. Throw it away, son. He threw the present away, right? Go to bed, son. No hug, no love. Go to bed, son, right? I am losing it. And my wife, bless her heart, is just watching me lose it.
Yeah.
I don't dream, man. I don't dream. That night, my mom's been married 4 times. Number 4 was the guy. She got it right.
Right.
He passed away, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, several years ago. That night, I dream he's in a room. I walk in the room. He hugs me. He hugs me. No words. I wake up. I go crawl in my son's bed. And I hug him. And I fall asleep. Right? So Tyler, when you say just love him, that's written on my heart. When all is said and done, we just gotta love them, right? We have our own baggage and we parent with that baggage, right? And it runs through that lens, and everything that's happening to us, we're making our own reality. And sometimes we blow that thing way out of proportion, and the casualty is love. Yeah. I mean, my kid now, he doesn't remember that. We talk about that experience often.
Yeah.
Right? But he doesn't remember that. No permanent harm was done, but a lesson was learned. And
for the record,
I just shudder.
It was a Happy Meal.
What kind of dad?
It was a Happy Meal toy, just for the record.
It was a Happy Meal toy.
Hey, man. Just so you know, when you were saying that, I wanted to reach through the screen and just kind of touch your face and just and just tell you, I get that, man. I get it.
Yeah.
I have. If I wanted to, if I was in therapy, I could be justified for everything that I feel. They would sit there and go, "You're right. You're right. you're right. And this is why you're messed up. And I'd go, I know. And they'd go, well, here's what you need to do. You know what I mean? But I understand that being the baggage, the scars, I got those, I got those, and they're good and bad, but, the understanding,
it's all good,
it is,
it's all
but
good.
You got to get there, you got to get there, because when your life is, terrible, but you don't know the difference, it's just life. And then one day when you kind of step into the light, or better yet, when you're pulled into the light and you're given salvation, let's say, and all of a sudden you look around, you're like, what? This is what it's supposed to be? This is how it is? Then all of a sudden you can kind of go with that, or you can go like, well, why did it take so long? It's about choice, but the reality of what affects us, it's real. One of the things I tell my boys is this: they deal with things in their age, and a breakup or a failure, and they're very emotional. And I know the common thing is to say, hey man, it's not no big deal. Life's gonna go on. You'll get over it. But the reality is this: if you stop and think about when you were at that age,
it's a big deal.
It's the biggest thing in your life.
Yeah.
There's nothing more important than this. This girl who I thought was the be all end all of life, she just broke up with me. That's huge, man. Let me just hold you. Let's just sit here. I think as we age sometimes, and I won't speak for everybody, I think that we forget that passion of youth, how real everything is and how hard everything was, man. Because it was hard. My life was hard, but it's also great right now. But I had to go through those things to become who I am. But I'll never forget those. But sometimes for my kids, I do, because I'm trying so hard to go, I'm going to keep you guys in this. I'm going to hold you with this. And you can't do that. It just doesn't work. It just causes resentment.
Yeah. I tell my kids all the time, the world would be a different place if adults would remember that they were kids once, and if kids would realize that someday they'll be adults.
Yeah.
You think about that.
I mean, I tell them that all the time. I'm like, so based on that logic, when you're my age, you employ that. Let me know how it works out.
That's right. So James, if we can kind of rewind for a second and go back to the beginning, and maybe you can give us a little bit of background about you and your mom and dad and your family, and just kind of growing up and what that looked like for James as a young man in a young family.
Okay. Like I said, and I want to preface with this, because I always do, I'm not speaking poorly of my mom and dad. It's reality. It's not the end game, but it was how it started, let's say, So I'm the oldest of three. My dad was 17 when I was born, turned 18 very shortly thereafter. My mom was just turned 18 right before I was born. They were kids, growing up in the 70s. They were each other's first love. It was confusing. It was hard.
Where are we at? Where in the country?
We were in California. We lived in the same town I live in right now.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Which is a whole nother story. But Crockett, California. My mom lived on Alhambra Upper. My dad lived on Alhambra Lower. So they knew each other since they were babies. They didn't date until their teens in high school, right? But so they had a kid, and real quick story. Those commemorative plates that people get to mark dates of import, marriage, first child. So I'm 15. I'm sitting at the kitchen table. I'm eating cereal, and I'm looking at these plates, and I'm doing dates, and I'm like, January 26th, married. July 2nd. And I go, Mom, was I a preemie? She's washing dishes. I go, Mom, was I a preemie? And she goes, she stops. And she goes, no, but honey, we were going to get married anyway. And I go, what? So anyway.
That's pretty observant, man.
Yeah. Well, I had just taken, the class in school about, the duration of pregnancy. So I was like, it's not 10 months. That's not even 9 months, So they were young, and my dad worked for the railroad, and then he went into the Navy. And so we moved from Crockett, we moved down to San Diego. And, think about being 18 years old, having a kid, and having at this point in time, no belief system of anything other than life. Life's giving you what she's giving you. So we grew up together, good, bad, and different. My first brother, Joel, came along 6 years after I was born. Didn't like him. They brought this thing into the house that was, whatever attention I thought I lacked, now I'm getting less. And this one's loud, crying all the time, So I adapt to that situation. And then, a year and a half, maybe a year and 9 months later, another one comes. I'm like, hey, man, what's going on? But they were kids having kids, and we persevered. And there was very difficult times in the early years. But then as the progression of time, and Ty, correct me if I'm kind of veering off course.
No, you're good.
From my life, 0 to 12 was what I refer to as the dark times, right? The times of uncertainty, the times of not knowing things. When I was 12, it was probably the most difficult, trying, hard time for my parents ever. I mean, they were separating all the time, My dad wasn't there the majority of the time. My mom was really raising us as best as she could, but she had to work. So I was raising 2 kids, being a kid, And my Uncle Joe was dating this lady who went to church. She was religious. She was spiritual. Up to that point, my father was a lapsed Catholic. My mom never went to church at all. She didn't know anything about it. This woman came to her and said, you should come with me, because my mom was in a really difficult, trying, hard place, right? She's trying to be a wife, trying to maintain to that edict of being a wife. And it was hard, it was difficult. So she went to church with this woman whose name was Jennifer. And she came back, and not to be theatrical about it, but it was like when she came home, it was a different woman. I'm very observant because I had to be, and she walked into the house, and I was like, there was an awareness in myself that I didn't even understand what it was. And I know what it is now. It was my spirit responding to what I was seeing. But she came home, and my mom's strong, man. She's strong. She's a rock, but she was confident in a way that I had never seen in my entire life. And my dad came home. It scared him to death, because it wasn't the same give and take of how things normally went. She made a statement. It was founded in, I found something that makes sense. I've got freedom. Do you want this? And he was, no, So he kind of disappeared for 2 weeks, and maybe a little bit longer, but he came back resentful, but he's like, well, I'm going to do this, So then he went and came back. And have you ever seen Invasion of the Body Snatchers?
Yeah, that's going old school, man. I like it.
in my 12-year-old brain, it was like that. Somebody's taking my parents and give me 2 who really are much better, They came home, and all of a sudden they had this awareness of us. And I was like, well, what is this? And it was compassion, and it was love, but it was so, and they didn't not love us, but it was mired in all the other stuff, So they came home, and it was like, I'm like, what is this? Now you want to know where I am? Now you want to know what I'm doing? But it was good, much better so for my brothers than me, because they were still so young. but it was the evolution of life. You know, it was the evolution of, here's where we were, and then this thing happened. What was this thing? Well, God interjected himself and said, hey, I need your attention. And they went, you know, either willingly or reluctantly, because on my father's half, it was probably reluctantly. It changed my whole universe, man. It opened up things to where that moment, that singular moment, you guys talked about little hinges, you know, that's not a little hinge, but it moved a gigantic door. So in perspective, it is a little hinge, but it moved a door that was gigantic in scope to bring me to where I'm at right now. It was that defining moment that brought me to where I really am right now. But that was, you know, those were the early years. You know, it was rough. It was rough sometimes.
Yeah. So James, when you talked earlier, when you were talking about your dad and your mom, and you said, you know, things changed, right? And you woke up and you saw your dad for who he was as your father, and you had a newfound respect. Was this part of that evolution in your dad? It
was because I've had father issues my entire life. When I was a young child, and he wasn't around, the unfortunateness of my mindset was that he didn't want me. You know, it's just how I viewed it, because mom was a constant. Although I blamed her for him not being around, I just thought that, you know, she annoyed him. He didn't want me, et cetera, you know? So I struggled with that. I struggled with that. I struggle with that to today, but in a more proper way now, you know, because I see it for what it is. When you're a kid, you're just like, my dad's not here. He must not want me, you know, because if he did, he'd be here. But it was rough, you know, it was rough trying to get past that. Because when you look at things, like if you were to write them down, all I wanted was a dad. That's it. I had a mom, whether I appreciated her in the vein that she deserved, because for a lot of years I didn't. I had her. She was there. But I wanted a dad, you know, and in the early years, I didn't have that, you know, and trying to figure out who you are as a person, who you are as a man, without a good example, it's rough, you know. So then you get that kind of resentment built up and those kind of things. And there's no bad about it that I see now. It is just how it was. But in the moment, I hated it. I hated it with all my heart, you know.
It's interesting, man. I'm listening to you talk about that, and I as you're talking about sort of those feelings that you had about your dad, you know, maybe not wanting you or abandoning you guys. And I think about our earlier conversation a few minutes ago where you talk about your greatest joy about being a dad. And it's sort of interesting, right? Like we go through these things that are just terrible and they're tough. And if our vision is right later on, those tough, terrible things transform us and help us to become what we want to be if we allow it, right? I mean, I think that that those experiences that you're talking about as a young boy probably have helped to shape who you are as a man and how you interact with your own kids.
Absolutely. But you don't see them in the moment. You see them in hindsight, you know?
For sure. Yeah.
And it's like, I'll just tell you, man, since my father's passing, which has been, like I said, 2 years, 3 months, the clarity of my life, what happened, who I am, I got no regrets anymore. You know, it's like, you know, hey, I wish we would have been born rich. You know, you might as well say that, you know, but in lieu of that, did you learn the lesson that was given? Yeah, I did. And are things the way that they were predestined to be? Yes, they were. So do you want to be upset about that? Because you can. Or you can go, look at all the good that happened, though, also.
Yeah.
Because I'll tell you what, my dad, he was a banging grandpa. You know what I mean? He killed it as a grandpa. You know.
Well, I think that what you just said there, that's kind of one of the secrets to happiness in life, right? I mean, despair comes when we get consumed with things we can't control,
Right.
and everything from this point backwards we can't control. And right, that, I mean, you could get spinning in a mode of thinking about how bad you had it and actually miss how good you get it.
Right.
Yeah.
The idea behind this life is to move forward, and that sideways energy benefits no one.
Right.
Worrying benefits no one. Anxiety about things you can't control benefits no one, right? And there's nothing more powerful than a non-example. And it sounds like you had about 12 years of what you didn't want.
Right.
And now now in a moment, it sounds like it's presented to you. This is what a dad looks like. This is what parents working together look like.
Yeah.
Right? Equally yoked, loving one another, love at home. It sounds like they had some love, but it was probably a tumultuous ride growing
Very
up.
much so. Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
I appreciate you sharing that. And props to your mom. How many times have we been on this show, Tyler, where we're throwing props to those rocks?
Yeah. I mean,
of moms and wives. Let me ask you this. How do you honor your mom and dad now? Your dad's gone. How do you honor them?
My mom, it's easy. She's my heart, you know, for everything that I am, because people give me, you know, and this is, let's put it in context. I'm a teacher in the church that I attend in a way that I never really wanted, you know. But I am that. If you ask me who I am, I'm a teacher. I know that. People comparing me to my father because he was an overseer in this church, and he had giant shoes, man. You know, knowing where he came from to who he was, those are big shoes, man. The Lord used him in ways that I can't even begin. We wouldn't have enough time. This would be an 8-hour, 12-hour podcast, you know. But
we've been known to bring people back.
There you go. There you go. But my heart, my mother defined that. My mom is the rock. Her surrender to the Lord and the saving of my family has never wavered in all the years. Because even after salvation, it's rough. Even after salvation, you struggle, you know, the want versus the worth. Which one's more important? How do we get there? You're going to be gone all the time doing the ministry, you know, those type of things. It's difficult, you know, but here's how I honor my mother. I honor my mother by being true to her, because I'm true. I'm not going to sugarcoat things. I'm not going to placate to others because I'm like, oh, let's not, you know, disrupt the status flow. She is a strong woman who takes no anything from anyone. I honor my father like this. We were in odds our entire life until the end. And in the end, we saw each other clearly. And in the end, I understood what it was he was trying to convey to me all these years that I resisted. So I honor him by continuing his work. I put my hands to the task, not just in the spiritual world, but in the physical world, because I've given up everything that I built for myself to continue on the work that he built. You know, I ran hotels and I've been a hotel lodger for 25 years. Now I sling tires. He offered me that job when I was 15, and I told him there is no way I'm doing that ever. And now that he's gone, that's what I do. And I'm going to tell you what, man, and I'm glad he's not here to hear this. I love it. I love it, man. I get so much joy from it that it's almost incomprehensible why that is.
Okay,
but I know that a huge part of it is honoring him,
So let me in on that decision.
It's a story. You got a minute for a story?
I got a couple.
Yeah.
Okay. So my father, when we came to the church, there was definite direction, right? And my father was he was a railroad worker, had everything, you know what I mean? Down the line, he was going to have a great retirement pension, all that kind of stuff. Worked for Union Pacific. The Lord showed us that wasn't the task. You need to go to Reading and you need to open a tire store. From a 12-year-old perspective, I'm like, we're doing what? You're out of your mind, man. So we move up there, and Tyler knows Reading's like moving to hell. The first summer that you live there, you're like, what is this? What is 118? When you live in the Bay Area and it's like 78 to 82, you go to 118 and you're like looking at people like, what did you do? What did you do?
A little crispy.
So my father, man, me and my brother were Rochambeau for who had to go get the mail the first summer we lived there. And I was the oldest. I'm like, no matter what you guys pull, you lose. So you're getting the mail. But we went to Reading. My father opened a tire store on North Main Street in Reading. And when I got to 15, he's like, hey, you want to come work there? So I went there and I worked the summer, and I told him emphatically at the end of it, I'm never doing this in my life. Right. Well, my father went on because that was the direction. This is what he was supposed to do. He had opened up a bunch of stores from Ukiah all the way down to San Pablo in the Bay Area. And I never wanted anything to do with it. He went his way. I went my way. I went into hospitality. I started at a hotel in Reading at the Holiday Inn. Got it, liked it, wanted to do it, and just kind of advanced through there. So he kind of went this way. I went this way. We kind of, exchanged pleasantries over our lives. And then we got to the point to where 2.5 years ago, he got sick. And at first it was just, he wasn't feeling well. There was something going on. He was going to the doctor. They were speculating what was going on. And he was sick. He was really sick. And at this time, I was down in Newark, which is about 45 minutes from here to there. And side note, I was miserable. I was miserable in a way that I didn't quite understand because I just didn't understand. So he's going through this thing, and he owns the shop. He's one of the owners, and he's not able to go to work. And he's dealing with things, and we're persevering through things. And I'm withdrawing more and more into myself because I'm not just unhappy with my work. I'm unhappy with the situation. I'm unhappy with what's going on. And I come to a point, and it had to be September of 2018, right? So I'm running this hotel, and I'm good at running hotels. I really am. I got hired by people who had bad hotels to come in and kind of fix them up, right? So I'm at this hotel in Newark, and as far as hotels needed fixing up, this one was at the top of the list. It was a mess, right? So I'm doing the do, and I called my dad, and I said, hey man, I'm thinking about maybe not doing this anymore because you need help. And I would have thought the answer would have been, all right, come on. But his response was, well, let me pray about it and talk to the guys. And I was like, well, what does that mean? I was a little offended. I just wanted to, yeah, right on. They went to go do that. And I went, well, because in my Jamesness, well, whatever then. I don't want that anymore. Right. So I go back to work. I do my job. My company gives me this, huge bonus on a Friday, right? What's that for? You're doing great. Cool. I don't need that then, that desire, I guess, that heartfelt want. I don't need that. I go through the weekend. My boss shows up on Monday. He's like, hey, man, it's just not working out. Here's your final check. I've never been fired from a job in my life. Well, that's not true. I got fired from Wendy's, but that's a totally different story.
I've been fired from McDonald's, so I feel you.
There you go.
Rehired, though. Rehired the next week, so.
Oh, I was definitely not getting rehired after what I did. But so he comes in and he goes, it's not working out. And I'm like, well, that doesn't even make sense because you just told me I'm doing a great job. And he's like, well, but here's your last check. And in that moment, there wasn't any kind of like, oh my God, what am I going to do? I got 5 kids and a wife, you know? I just thought, there's something going on. So I called my dad and I said, hey, listen, I just got let go. He's like, what'd you do? I'm like, I don't think I did anything. I'm like, but you said you were going to pray about something and you haven't gotten back to me. He's like, well, I didn't know if you really meant it. I said, well, now I guess I really mean it. And he said, well, okay, well, let me get back to you. So he got back to me, he goes, so here's what we want. We think you should start like this and you should do it for X amount of time and see if this is really what you want to do, because it's hard, you know, going from this job of telling people what to do to slinging tires. Hey man, that's night and day. You know, it is night and day. And the first day there, I'm not gonna lie, I thought I might have a heart attack. You know, you guys doing all this work, I'm gonna hide back here and just be like, but so I took the job. He said, here's what we want. And I said, I'm gonna do that. And it was the right thing, you know. It was the realization that for the first time in my life, I was doing what I was supposed to do. I was going where I was supposed to go. And it was such a heavy feeling, man. You know, I talk about things in a sense of concept, but when you experience the peace, you know that scripture where the Lord says, put your yoke down, pick up mine because it's lighter.
Yeah.
I get that, man, because I came to the point to where the life that I had built based on what I wanted was no longer as important as the life of worth that I was being called to. And I had to put all that stuff down, and it was scary, man. It was scary. I went from making X amount of dollars a year, full coverage insurance, you know, benefits, to going, you want me to sell used tires? Lord, are you sure? Yeah. Well, okay. You know? And it's been 2.5 years, Ty and Mike, and I'm telling you, I've never known the peace that I have right now in my entire existence. I'm good.
James, you talked about that kind of being at odds with your dad for a period of time, and then getting to this place where now you're working with him, but he's sick.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And he's sick right now. So what does that time do for you? That sort of reconciliation, and then being in the shop and running the shop. I mean, how does that look for your relationship with your dad?
The way that things transpired is like this. I always wanted a dad, right? And then when he was available to me, he also had an obligation to the church. So I didn't have him. You know what I mean? Not in the way that I wanted, not in the physical way. He was doing better things than he had done his entire life, but I wanted, you know, when you have a dad as an overseer, it's rough. I didn't want him in that way. I just wanted him. Every single conversation was always of a spiritual note. Sometimes I just wanted to be messed up and have him go, yeah, I get it. I never really got that with him, you know, and that's not a bad thing. That's just me resisting what was going on and him trying to be what he was supposed to be. But in the latter parts of our relationship, he, you know, because like I told you, when I was 15, I told him I'm never doing this. I'm never doing this. And so I started there, and I'm working, and I'm not gonna lie, I got the thing about dirt, man. It's a little, OCD. I hate being dirty. If I wanted to be dirty, I
You work with tires.
I know, man. And it's like,
Yeah.
and I got this thing about my fingernails where it freaks me out when I got dirt under them. And it's like, I obsess over it. And now I'm in this job where, you can't be clean to save your life. You just can't. But, so he was out of the shop at this point when I started, because he was just in too much discomfort to come down there, but he would try to come down at least one time a week just to see us. Right. So he came down one time, and he was like, hey, Dad, good to see you. He's like, good to see you, gave me a hug, goes about his business, goes home. I go over there that night because we meet there as men's meeting, and we do our men's meeting, and we get done, and he goes, hey, come here. He goes, hey, man, I was looking at you today because this also happens to coincide with me getting my health in line. So I'm losing a great deal of weight, right? But
whoa! You're speaking my language. We'll come back to that.
All right. So I was wearing his shirt at the time, and he was like a double XL. And because I'm losing weight, it's just not. It's like a wind sail now. I'm wearing this shirt that's like, And he's like, hey, come here. I'm like, what's up? He goes, hey, man, I was looking at you today. I'm like, all right, what's up? He's like, I saw you like a little kid in a rain slicker that's way too big, jumping in puddles, and you were just so happy. And I said, yeah. I'm like, I get that. I am happy. And he goes, are you? And I go, yeah. And he grabbed my face, and he pulled me close, and he kissed me. And he goes, I love you, son. And in that moment, everything that I have ever dealt with or struggled with or resisted was righted. It just was. There was no more of the past. There was no more of the right now. It was just the moment. And it was beautiful, man. And that's a gift. That was a gift. You don't have to get that stuff in life, because we have to go on regardless, Man, that was a gift. And that is something that I will hold to until my dying breath, because I wanted a dad my entire life, and I had a good one, man. I really did. And I didn't appreciate him 99% of the time because I didn't see it clearly. But in that 1%, that moment, man, he was an awesome dad. He gave me everything that I ever wanted and healed everything that was broken. And I am so much better for it, man. It's amazing. So wow. That's that part anyway.
Love that. I appreciate you sharing that, James. That's I'm just, listening to kind of that whole journey, and I can't help but think, like, one of the things my mom always says to me is, and I hated this when I was a kid, as a matter of fact, that everything happens for a reason, right? She'd be like, everything happens for a reason, son.
Yeah.
This is called, I don't know what I'm talking about right now, and so I'm just going to give you something. That's how I translated it when I was young.
Right.
But I'm listening to this, and I'm just thinking, man, what a journey, right? What a journey. And the journey is the journey. You talked about this earlier about hindsight. When we're in the journey, it's like, it's chaotic. It's hard to understand. There's questions at every turn, like, why are we, and what are we doing, and why are we doing it, and what's the next step going to look like, and is there even a next step planned?
Right.
But I'm just listening to you, from mom and dad walking into a church, to a move to Redding, to you getting let go from the hotel, to this moment after the men's meeting where your dad's talking to you and grabs your face and tells you that he loves you. I just feel like it's almost like sometimes it's hard for us to recognize the good that we have until we see that good is fleeting a little bit, or that good is going to be gone, you know?
Right.
I'm even thinking about, James, your words earlier about your son, right?
Yeah.
And letting God in on it. Like he knows.
Yeah.
And here you've been doing it your way. You've been doing your thing. And he knows there's this other source of happiness out there. There's a different way to do this. And props to you for putting it on the altar. You had a life.
Yeah.
And you, being a dutiful son, start to feel like I need to be with my dad. And that unlocks this other path, this whole other path that you at 15 rejected soundly.
Yeah. Yeah.
And just the freedom that's given you. Can you talk a little bit? So you talked about that moment, right? When your dad gives you that kiss and just says, I love you. And like in an instant, everything's righted. What does life feel like after that? So since his passing, where are you at, man? How you doing?
Oh man, I'm good. You know, I'm good. I wake up with, I don't wake up with dread in my heart about what I have to do. I don't go to bed wrecked over the day that I've had. You know, I've said this probably already, but I really want to define it. My life, I'm 47. I'm going to be 48 this year, almost 50, which kind of freaks me out, but whatever. I have rode the roller coaster of my desire my entire life. And I have lived a life of want my entire life. What I want, what I think, how I think it should be. I built things with my own hands. I directed the course of my career. I built those things. I did that. You know, James did that. When all of that is stripped away and you're given things in the vein of, for me, I didn't deserve, right? Because I could have seen things probably clearer a long time ago, but God is God. His time is his time. It's not my time, right? But I resisted a lot. But to be given the gift that I got, I finally understood the idea or the desire to live a life of worth. I live a life of worth now. My life is not my own. I get that. And you know what? Not only do I get it, I am way okay with that, man. I am way okay with that. I'm going to do what I was made to do. And I'm going to be thankful because, you know, you were talking about, you know, getting to this point and my older son, and I had to call my mom one time and I said, how did you know when to let me go? I said, how did you get a comfort level? Because my mom is a bomb. My mom never high-fived me for being who I was, but she never made me feel bad about who I was because she always had trust and faith that I was who I was supposed to be. And she said, James, I'm going to just tell you what. She said, once I found who I was supposed to be, I understood that you weren't only my child, you were God's child. And if you were God's child, then your purpose was already inside of you. I'm not going to control that. It's just going to be. And I was like, well, hey, Mama, thanks. You know, as great as that is, how do you get there?
Yeah.
She goes, you just got to let go. And I'm like, okay.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
But she was right, you know, because I struggled against that for a long time. I'm like, well, maybe she's not seeing things really clearly. You know, it was a different time back then. But she was right, man. I just had to go, hey, Ash, do your thing, man. Because I had to realize she's right. If I am who I am, and he's been brought up that the way he's been brought up, then he's a child of God. So if that's fact, if that's truth, and if I believe what I believe, then I have to trust in the fact. that his life is dictated by God, not me. So once I got there, I mean, I'm not gonna lie and say, oh, everything's okay now. I still got, I still want to kind of hold the brake. I want to pull it every once in a while. But I know that it was extended to me. I have to extend it to him, and it makes it more peaceful to deal with, is all.
Okay, I'm dying to know this.
Yes.
This is a frequent question on the program. You've shared what faith did for your parents. Where in your life did faith become a source of power and strength for you? Like where did James stand on his own 2 feet when it comes to faith?
To be absolutely honest, it wasn't until my dad got sick. I've never been in denial of God's presence in my life, ever. Once he came into our life, I knew with certainty because I saw the difference and the change between night and day with my parents. So there was never a doubt. There was a lack of desire. I don't know if I want that. That seems to be a lot. I mean, my parents got to go out and do all these things, and now I have a list of things that I have to adhere to. As a teen, that's rough. I'm like, well, you guys got to mess up. You got to be all this, And then for a long time, I kind of did things based on, how do you say, my dad was a big deal in the church. I loved my dad. I didn't want to be the scar on his record of what's your kid doing, So I kind of did things out of obligation, let's say, right? I did things out of obligation because he was a good guy. He was helping a lot of people. He had turned a corner in his life. He was helping a lot of people. And then all of a sudden there's this yoke of, well, you're going to be this. I'm like, well, I don't want that. What do you mean? Well, your dad's this. I'm like, right, but I'm not him, So I did that for years. And it was like the petulant son. I'm going to do it, but this sucks, I mean, but I'm going to do it. Why aren't you guys doing it?
Hey, in the eyes of God, you might as well not do it.
Yeah. And that's
right. The gift given begrudgingly is not really given.
Yeah. Sitting there like this.
Yeah.
Well, nobody else can do it. I guess I'm going to, So I went through all that. I struggled up and down, up and down, up and down. But when he got sick and I went, and I was probably in the worst place during that time of my life. I was miserable, to be honest. I was broken. I was in the depth of despair that I couldn't quite understand. I have so much to be thankful for that I would never be one who go, I'm going to take my life. You know what I mean? But I also, on the other hand, thought, but if it were to happen, would it be that bad to not feel like this anymore? So I was in the crucible of the refinement. And man, I am so stubborn. I am so hard-headed. And I resisted with every fiber of my being. And it's a beautiful thing to be wrong when you realize that you're wrong. Because I woke up one day and I was I'm telling you what, man, I was so marred and so convoluted and so just, and God just told me, James, you're just wrong. And I was like, you're right. I'm wrong. And it was like this weight just slewed off my body. And I was like, and it's okay to be wrong? Yeah, but acknowledge that you're wrong. I'm wrong. And in that moment, and because as I teach, as I go forward, I've been a firm believer in the Lord for 35 years, let's say, give or take. my life began 2.5 years ago with certainty of my faith, of holding to what I hope and what I'm confident in, what I can't see. That's where I'm at today. And it's been hard fought, but man, worth it. So worth it. You know, because the place that I'm standing now can't rock me. You know, I've done it. I've been there. I've seen. This is where I'm at. Yeah, this is what I'm doing. I'll do this.
Hey Ty, you mentioned earlier, right? I can call you you Ty.
Yeah, we're good. Yeah,
we're past it. Hey, you mentioned that we have people all over the place in different places in their life.
Yeah.
So James, my question to you is, think of that guy who's where you were 2.5 years ago. 122 people commit suicide every day in this country. And for every suicide, there's 4 attempts. There's a lot of people that are miserable.
Yeah.
What would you say to that guy? You might be in his ear, right? Maybe he's going through struggles, and a good friend, says, "Hey, tune into this. Maybe this will help." What would you say to that guy, or gal?
That's so. I mean, I watched this show one time, and through the course of it, this individual was put into these positions that eventually led her to take her life. And it was just a show, it's not real. But my wife and I were talking about it, and she said, I thought she overreacted to the situation. And my response was, well, yes or no. If you are made to feel in such a way that you think this is your only option, you have to acknowledge it is real. You can't take that away from an individual who loses hope, who feels like there is no other answer other than this. My thing that I would tell to anybody, and it's just words, because unless you can feel it, there's hope, man. There's hope. I have lived a life that is fantastic and it's glorious, but it did not start that way. And there's been moments in it where I could have checked out because it would have been much easier to, but I'm telling you, I don't know what the other side is, but in the moment, hope gives me everything that I could ever need. The thought of it can be better, the thought of it might be better is to me, worth far more than going, I'm just going to check out because I cannot do this anymore. You can do things you're not aware of. We give up. We tend to give up. We're driven to give up. You don't have to. And I know it's rough, man. I know it is, and I'm not trying to take away anybody's situation from anything, but hey, man, you get one more day to wake up. That could be the corner that turns everything around.
And I just want to emphasize what you just said, because so many people give up right before that corner.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Right before that corner. And the idea of hope being that tomorrow can be better and that you can make it so.
Yeah.
Right? That you talked earlier about choice, right? You have that superpower called choice, where you can actually do something to make it better. I think it's funny that your dad worked on a railroad, because Tyler and I, we had a previous guest who talked about how our lives are not on tracks at any time. So many times we feel like we're stuck on this track, and I'm just on this track heading to this destination that I don't want.
Control. Right.
No control.
Yeah.
You are not on a track. Right. Love that. Thank you, James, for letting us in on that. And I really do hope that they feel beyond. I love what you said. These are just words unless you feel it.
Yeah.
And we really need to feel these days and be okay with feeling. Like you said, I love that. I love that when you have that experience where God just kind of says you're wrong. Like, embrace what the feeling is, name it and roll around in it, but feel, because there are forces at play that want us to kind of go through this thing numb and not awake and not engage or attached to our phones, right? not the engaged dad that you're talking about. Feel it. It is glorious in all of its messed up chaos. You're still living, right? Love that, James. Thank you.
Yeah,
James, you and I had a conversation a few weeks ago, and you talked about some of this time that you got to spend with your dad before he passed, and I think like what a blessing, right? To be able to come in and be there and connect, and to what did that space of time mean to you?
If you want, I can tell you again, because in the telling of it, I can tell you what it meant to me. It's a little bit heavy, so if I pause for a moment, it's because it's really dusty in here, and I might get dust in my eye.
That's all right. There's been dust in my eye multiple times tonight. I gotta admit. So
okay. So, my dad got sick, and I got bad, and then after multiple doctor appointments, the doctors finally said, "Oh, it's cancer, and you're not going to get better." And I already knew this. The Lord had already shown me, your dad's not going to get better. And I was so angry because he was such a good dude, and he was so important to so many others, and I was self-destructing at this point. And he called us one day and he goes, "Hey, I need you guys to come over." And he says to us, me and my brothers and our wives, he goes, so it's cancer, and they've given me 6 months or so to live, right? And he turns to me, he goes, "You knew that, didn't you?" And I was messed up at that point. I was like, I don't want to talk to you right now. So he got sick and I got bad, and we kind of started going down the slope, right? He called us one time, and this is more toward the end. The middle is gray. There's a lot of things that are going on there that I can speak to emotionally, but I don't think they're as important as the beginning and the end, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we're approaching the end of things, and not that we knew this, but for the narrative, this is where we were. So I'm at work. I'm at the tire shop now. I'm there full time. And he calls my Uncle Tom, who's his business partner. He said, "Hey, I would like some of the guys to come pray for me." So my Uncle Tom comes in. He's like, "Hey, we're going to go pray for your dad." I'm like, "Oh, okay." Because we've been doing that anyway, for his health, for his general well-being. So we get there, and he's sitting on the bed, and my mom's there. And my brother Joel is there, my Uncle Tom, a couple other people. And he's like, "I want you guys to pray for me, but I got to make this phone call first." So he calls one of the other overseers, and he goes, "Dave," he goes, "I'd like to ask the Lord if I can come home, if it's his will." He said, "If it's not, if I have more to do, then I understand." And then Dave said whatever he said. And then my dad said, "But Dave, I heard sing." And then he hung up the phone. And he looked at us. And up until that point, as the family, we hadn't prayed for his passing. We had prayed for his healing, right? Because that's not a prayer you want. "Hey, take my dad," You want his comfort, but you don't want it to lose him. So when he voiced it, we accepted it as the family. And it was hard, So we prayed the prayer of, "Lord, take my father home." And we get done. The men are leaving the room. I give him a hug, and I'm like, "Hey, man, I'm thinking about maybe coming back over tomorrow night and spend the night if you're okay with that." And he looks at me with that childlike, goofy grin of his. And he goes, "Hey, man, I wouldn't go far." I'm like, "What do you mean?" "Matter of factly, I just wouldn't go far." I'm like, "Okay." So I go back to work. I get off, and I go back over there, spend the night. And I get up the next morning. I go to work, and one of the ladies in the church called, and she had been calling around trying to get a hold of anybody. And she said, I think your dad's not doing okay. I think you guys should go over there and sing for him. And take this into account. She didn't know about the conversation. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That wasn't public information. My Uncle Tom comes back. He's like, hey, we have to go right now. I'm like, what's going on? He's like, we have to go see your dad. I'm like, well, what's going on? He goes, I don't know, but we have to go. So we go over there, and it just happened to coincide with my brother Joel already being there. And my wife and his wife were coming over to help my mom with stuff. And they're notoriously late to everything, you know, and they just happened to be there. So I go in the room and I sit down and I'm looking at him. And he looks at me and he goes, you know, how are you? I'm like, I'm good. How are you? He goes, he just nods his head, you know. And things started happening very quickly at that point. And I got up on the bed because he was struggling. So I got up on the bed and I got behind him and I was holding him in my arms. And my dad's a big dude. I'm not, you know, but my dad was 6'5", a lot of man, you know. And even in his diminished state, that's a lot of dude to be holding on to, right? So I'm holding him. My mom is sitting directly across from him. My brother Joel's in front of him. Our wives are here. As this is going on and I'm holding him, and my recollection of people showing up was narrow because I was focused in the moment. But people started showing up from our church. And all of a sudden, I hear singing. And I look and I see these people and I'm like, well, where did you guys come from? And I'm holding my dad. And I have my hand on his heart and I'm feeling his heart. And he looks up at my mom and he goes, I'm going to go. And she said, okay. And you know, he put his head down and he went, and I felt his heart stop. And I looked at my mom and I said, he's gone. And she put her head to his chest and she's like, you're right. And here's my takeaway. My father was a convoluted mess of a man who gave his life to the Lord, who in his final hours called on him and said, can I go home? And God said, come on. Because if you look back at the history of his illness, the doctor told him, you're not there yet. But in his mind, he had had enough. And as a good servant, he asked his father, can I come home? And he said, yeah. Because he prayed about it. He got one day. And then the things that he talked about happened. And he went home, man. And for me, that's all I want for the rest of my life, man. I want to go out. I'm not ready to kick off. I'm not. I still got things I want to do.
Yeah, hang tight.
But to go out like that, that's a blessing that I will never, ever undervalue. It was, I can't even give words to it. Amazement would be to, you know, undervalue it. It was heavenly, you know?
Well, I appreciate you sharing that sacred moment, and I think that's the best way to describe that, right? Is, you know,
yeah.
We have those moments that are kind of maybe few and far between that are transformational and give us a glimpse of what this is really all about, you know. And
yeah.
I appreciate you sharing that with us.
Yeah.
Hey, James, can I just add something?
Company. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, can I just add something? I love that, and I appreciate you letting us in on that. And I think, Tyler, you nailed it with that word, right? I feel like I'm kind of standing on sacred ground, but there's something to living great, but man, to die great. Right?
Yeah.
To live great and to die great. Like, just to put that bow on it
Yeah.
And to go home like that.
Yeah.
And just so you know, I'm never going to forget that story.
No,
Yeah.
never.
Yeah. Well,
and that's what I'll be chasing. That's what I'll be chasing.
Yeah.
Well,
right?
it's what I'm chasing right now, and it's funny because people go, well, your dad died, aren't you? Well, yeah, man, I miss the dude. He was great. But he went out like a servant of God, and understand it or don't. He asked, he prayed. That's the confirmation of my entire faith right there. No, this is real. It's not.
He's still around. He's still in your life.
Oh, yeah.
He's still aware.
Oh, man. I tell you what, that I don't doubt for an instant, because when he passed, I heard in my head clearly, as if he was speaking into my ear. He goes, hey, man, you're in it now. And in that moment, I really embraced my role that I was called to. It was like this, no, I will never be. You're out of your mind. Okay. Yep. It was beautiful, man. I miss my dad every day. I love that dude. He was like a tornado, beautiful in its view, but destructive in its capacity, but such a force regardless. And the things that he did for so many others and me, hey, man, from where he started to where he ended, amen for that, amen for that.
Well, I love the analogy of the tornado, because I believe really, when I look at my own life and I look at some of the changes that I made, and people kind of say, man, how did you make those changes? Right? Maybe we grew up together and then we run into each other 20 years later, and they're looking at like, who is this guy? Who are you? And I tell them all the time, same dude, same energy, heading in a different direction.
Yeah.
Right. That's it.
Yeah.
Once we know, it's like Saul on the road to Damascus. The second he knows.
Yeah.
Wait, there's a Lord named Jesus Christ. Got it.
Yeah.
What do you want me to do? Hey,
Saul, you're wrong. Let me show you how to be right. Let me show you how to be right.
Yeah, that's right. Let me look. I gotta say, this whole time that we've been sitting here talking, I love the lessons that have been taught tonight, James. But it would be unfair of me if we just said, this is your journey, what you described. I think we got to talk for a second, at least, about Cammie.
Oh, you got to go. You got to go back to love at first sight at 15 years old, man.
We got to. I'd like. Yeah.
We put a pin in it.
I want to hear about you and Cammie, your meeting, but I also want to kind of, if you can talk for a minute about this journey together and what together has brought your family, and sort of how you guys have worked that together. Because I know Cammie. I love Cammie. She's one of my favorite people. I think I've known Cammie a little bit longer than you even. I think I met her first before I met you, actually.
Yeah, you did. You knew her because she knew you and your sister.
Yeah.
And then, we were dating, but I was on the backside to, because she was still in school. I was out.
Yeah. Yeah. You had graduated and
yep.
Yeah. So anyway,
let's tell the story.
Yeah.
Let's tell the story. Okay. So I'm me doing my thing, skateboarding, living the life, met girls. As soon as they got way of skateboarding, I'm like, you got to go, and then this
so
girl
you got your priorities straight. You got your
I did have my
priorities
priorities straight.
Yes.
Yeah. So then comes this girl who is so far out of my class that I'm like, she would wave at me in the hall and I'd do this. I'd look behind me to see who she was waving at, because logistically it did not make sense. There's cliques, there's levels of acceptance. She was in the upper echelon of, oh no, don't even talk to her. But she was into me, man. And I was uncertain. So I went to BA, because we were close and I knew that he knew her. And I'm like, hey man, we're skating one time. I'm like, hey, what's up with that girl, Cammie? He's like, oh man, she's super cool. I've known her, blah, blah, blah. He's like, hey man, I think she kind of likes you. I'm like, oh, well, okay. So I muster up the courage to ask her out in a time where I'm like, I'm very uncomfortable with that, And she said yes. And we hung out. And I'll tell you this because I tell her this all the time. I knew it in the moment that she was the one. Now, I didn't know what that meant because I was 17, but I knew that with this girl, I could not be me. I had to be different.
Mm.
And in the acknowledgement of that, of course, you have to understand what that means. You have to figure it out. So you have to open yourself to this person to see where they're coming from in order to know better how to respond to where they're coming from. Because like I said, before the moment a girl was like, I don't want you to go say it, I'm like, later, I got to go. And Cammie really, I told you a story about we went to Reading, right? I hated Reading. I despised it. 2 things of note came from that. My wife and you and the guys, you to this day, you, Sweetie, Matt, Brandon, Gabe, those guys, I've met people. I know people. I have no friends like you guys. And that's a very rare thing, Yeah. And not only that, but I found my spouse. So I know that the Lord brought us to Reading for that purpose.
Yeah.
To define me as a person and to give me what I needed to be that person.
Well, that's funny because Tyler was a disgruntled SoCal import as well.
Yeah.
So you guys probably hit it off.
I honestly think Cammie was one of the first people I met when we moved up to Reading, and I hated the world. Like I didn't want to. In fact, I had tried to make it a goal of mine to not make any friends while I was there because I didn't
want them either. I'm like, this place sucks. I'm going to be bitter until you move back to the Bay Area.
This episode is brought to you by the City of Reading Tourism.
Chamber of Commerce. but it's funny that you say that though, James, because I think the same thing. It's like, you in the moment, it's tough to like visualize what good could possibly come of this. And now in my rearview mirror, I have so much love for the people that I've met in Reading that like, there's people like you that will be in my life forever. Mike, who will be in my life forever. I mean, it's one of those great things, right? But in the moment, man, I just took it all out on skateboards. That was it, man.
That was it. Hey, man, get that aggression out. We know how to do it,
That's right. Yeah.
But yeah, man, she, God, man, she is so, I tell her all the time because, we get in these 30 some odd years of in a relationship, you really understand how to push each other's buttons, and, the other day she told me, we were in an argument and I was conveying my views, in the way that I do, a little bit
very diplomatically, I'm sure.
A little passion.
Yeah.
Little bit of passion.
Yeah. Totally logical. And I was telling her something and I got done and she goes, well, if that's how you feel, then you need to quit telling me that I'm amazing. And I stopped for a minute and I thought about it. I'm like, Cam, let me tell you something. You are this, you are this, you are that. But you're also the most amazing woman I've ever met in my life that I've given my heart to. And guess what? It's okay to be both. It's okay to be all of those things because it's a fact. I'm like, you look at me in a certain light, other people look at me in this light. You're both right. That's okay. It's who I am. It's who you are. You want to be good with that because I am. God, I love that woman. She's put up with me for so long. And I'm not going to lie, guys. I have moments, I have moments where I'm like, you should have probably left me a long time ago, but she hasn't, and I adore her.
Well, James, as you were telling about the spot you were in a couple of years ago, right? Before your dad's passing, I pictured her by your side.
Yeah.
You know, and there's so many times where our wives look at us and they know that we're not who we should be.
Right.
And they have faith that they'll get us out of it. And that to me is miraculous.
Absolutely.
She, you know the word resolute? I mean, I don't mean that like, do you guys know that word?
Well, I went to Red Bluff, so it is important every once in a while to check in with big words.
A little shaky.
Oh man, look at, now you're making me cry again, but for a totally different reason. She was at a place where her faith sustained me because she was resolute in where she was, because I was falling apart, man. I was literally, downward spiral. It was the worst. It was the worst time of my elder years of my life. And she was the foundation. She was the anchor to not let me drift so far away that I would lose myself. And I wasn't necessarily nice to her during those times, because I was not nice to myself.
Well,
so I projected that.
Hurt people, right?
Yeah. But she kept the lamp lit. You mentioned the lamp before. She kept the lamp lit so where I could always find my way back, even if I didn't want to. And then when I did, I knew exactly where it was. She's, Ty knows her, she's amazing, man. I mean, I'm not trying to be like, she really is. She redefined my entire existence. She really did, and it's a beautiful thing, man. I love it. I love it.
James, if for $20, we'll save this episode drop for Valentine's Day.
Very good. Very good.
I'll
Venmo you later.
We'll just put you off a month.
Hey, James, you talked, if we can kind of circle back for a second, because you talked about making some big changes in your life, health-wise, and some of those things. And I imagine Cammie probably played a role in some of that as well. But can you talk about that? Just sort of that transformation and what you went through?
Yeah. When you're, for lack of a better term, miserable, nothing really matters. I had got diagnosed with abnormally high blood pressure. And I was like, well, whatever, I'll deal with it. They gave me some medication. They prescribed some things. I got them. Pacification really is what I was doing, because Cammie was like, you need to get on this. You need to be. I'm like, okay. But I wasn't taking them. My weight's increasing. And, when you're gaining weight, you don't really see it until you see it, And I was in Reno and with my son Skylar, and I ended up in the hospital. I ended up in the emergency room, and it was an ugly experience. I had got there and I was reveling. We're hanging out, we're skating, we're partying a little bit, and I was with the guys up there, and but when I got there, I didn't feel right. I had this, couldn't breathe, but I'm like, well, it's higher elevation, and really what it was me not taking care of myself. Right. So we're at a place, and all of a sudden I just completely fell out, and came to him in the emergency room. I have to leave my son in the responsibility of guys I love, but they're not his dad, and all of a sudden I'm in there, I'm getting, every heart test you can, because what had happened was my heart had literally kind of stopped for a minute. It wasn't a heart attack, but if your heart's like this, palpitation wise, mine went, and then it started, So I'm up there, they're giving me all these tests. My blood pressure, once my heart was in the range, was way up. It was too high. It was kind of like in an AFib situation. And they didn't want to give me the shock, because, that could have adverse effects. but they needed to get my heart rate down to a manageable level. So they gave me this stuff, and I don't know exactly what it was, but it had, the little radiation symbol on it. And it slowed my heart to the point of, I thought I was dying, It was just like, it's like, the trash compactors, the big ones for cars. It was like that. That's what it felt like. And I can't breathe. And then they give me this shot of adrenaline and you come back up, and then your heart levels out. And it gave me a clarity of understanding of, hey man, you need to get it together. So I came home and I didn't, because I felt better, I'm like, well, right. I'm upright. I'm cool. I'm not feeling like I did, whatever. I'm not going to take my medication. Right. In addition to that, at this point, I'm like 230 pounds, which is, for a 5'9" dude, that's a lot of weight to be carrying around. I had been diagnosed with severe sleep apnea, to which I responded, I'm sleeping great. You guys don't know, So in the midst of this, Cammie starts deciding she's going to get healthier. And I think that like subconsciously, she was kind of getting herself in the position, if he's going to kick off, I need to be in a better position than I am, whether she voiced it or not, I feel that that's what was the motivation. So she starts getting in shape, and I'm looking at her. I'm like, she always looks great to me. You know what I mean? She's the love of my life. So she's always, and I'm looking at her. I'm like, you look great. But what I meant was you look so healthy, because she did, And I went in my room and I sat down on the bed. And when you weigh 230 pounds at 5'9", everything's kind of in one spot, So I sat down on the bed and I looked into this mirror and I'm like, I'm a circle. I'm a complete circle. I'm like, when you sit down and everything compresses, it's just, on both sides. And I'm like, and that was kind of like the beginning of my downward, because in addition to my questions about life, now I'm depressed about how I look. And I've never cared about how I looked. If she loves me, I don't care, But now I'm looking at this, I'm like, well, that's not good. That's not a good look.
Circle's not a good look.
No, it's not, man. A circle with a giant other circle on top. It's just like, hey man, I'm not a snowman, and I look like, so I start contemplating these things, and she's losing weight and she looks great. And one day she bends down, she's putting on her sock, and she's like, whew, kind of takes the breath out of you. And she looks at me, she goes, how do you do that every day? And I go, did you just call me fat? She goes, no, I'm just wondering how you put your socks on every day. I'm like, right. But based on the premise that was a little difficult for you. And it got in my head, man. And I'm like, I can't believe she just said that. She's like, that's not what I meant, but that's how I took it. So anyway, this was exactly around the time that I was coming to the place spiritually that I need to be physically, right? So I applied where God was taking me to the desire to be around for a while. And I gave up some things. I reconsidered some things. I got my health in line. And I committed to it. I was focused on it to today. I haven't stopped. I eat right. I eat smart. I do the things that I need to do. But I went from 230 pounds to 175 pounds. I went from being on every heart medication that you can be on, hypertension, the water ones, I forget what they're called, beta blockers, not that I was taking them, but I was on them because that's where my heart was. Now I'm on nothing. I take vitamins. I eat my meals. I use my sleep apnea machine. I'm in control of where I'm at right now because of the choices that I made. But it was through her and through other things that I had to get the hint, because Even being 230 pounds when I thought life is good, I look back at pictures now, I'm like, why didn't somebody tell me? You know, my brother Jeff, I show him pictures, he goes, that dude looks like he ate this dude. I'm like, why didn't you tell me then? He's like, I thought you were happy. I'm like, no, man, I was not happy.
Hey, James, as a dad, we're gonna go full circle, right? All you ever wanted to do was be a dad. As a dad, what do you hope your kids are learning from you right now?
I hope that they learn really to be what they say and to do what they hope for and to not give up on whatever dreams they have. I tell my kids all the time, don't wake up when you're 35 and go, I wish I could have done this. I'm like, do it all. Do it all. It's all right there, man. Don't let the world tell you you can't, you're not good enough. Figure it out for yourself. Be dreamers, man. I'm a dreamer, you know. I got things that I wish I would have done. I'm not disenfranchised that I didn't follow up on them. I just came to the conclusion a little too late. So it's something I encourage in my kids. No, man, dream big. You want to be a rapper? Be a rapper, man. You want to be a pro skater? Do that. You want to be an artist? Do that. The world is yours to do with what you want. Don't let people hold you back. Believe in yourself.
Sounds like no lids, Tyler.
It is, yeah. We were just talking about this before you came on with us, man. I love it.
No limitation, right? Our only limitation is our creativity.
Yeah, it's fact.
Right.
Hey James, what gives you hope? What gives you hope?
My life, really. The turnaround, the coming to, the going through the fire of change and coming out and being like this, you know? God, man, I can't, maybe I can. I'm so happy with my life. I am so content. You know, people talk about, spiritual people they talk about surrender, submitting. I won't speak for everybody, but I spent a lot of time of my life talking about it as a concept, as opposed to understanding it. But coming to that place willingly and the peace that comes from it, man, I don't have a bad day, man. I might have bumps, but my life rules. You know, I mean that. So my hope is, I get my hope from this. I made a choice to do something, to believe in something, to follow in something, and it's given me everything that I wanted. And I hold to that hope every day that it's fact, because what else do I got, man? You know?
What else do I got?
Yep.
Yeah.
Is there anybody else? You have done a wonderful job honoring your wife, honoring your parents. This is about you, man. Is there anybody else that you feel at this stage in your life, looking back, you'd like to honor?
You know, my Auntie Patty, my dad's sister, was she's like I you know, I don't want to mar the Italian, but I think she's like El Duce, which I think means like the rock, you know. When I was young and very confused about being wanted, you know, which I spoke about, I always knew she did. And to this day, I know that because I can see it when we talk. I can see it in how she converses with me. She sees in things that she saw in my father that I have and things that I struggle with, but she always tells me, you're such a good dad. I can see it in your beautiful children. And she's not saying the things to puff me up. She's saying it because she's a real honest, down-to-earth person. And she's beautiful, man. She's beautiful. She is another person who's defined me dramatically, who is still around to this day I just called her Sunday, you know. She said some things and I was like, I just want to talk to you about that because, you know, I've lived a life of trying to figure things out for so very long. And now I lean to the wisdom of others who have walked this world much longer than I have. And she's one of those. And I reached out to her and I just said, hey, you said this. And she said, well, here's what's going on. and I love her. So if I want to honor somebody else, it would be my Auntie Patty for sure.
Mm-hmm. So as a dad who's struggling with the distractions of the world, how do you plug into your kids and turn everything else off?
You know, that is rough, because the narrative of today is this is the only method of communication that we have. If you don't have this, the Zoom, you can't do anything else. You're on lockdown. You can't go to school. Your friends are separate, So my children were becoming desensitized to social interaction because of all this. I mean, it makes sense when you're 10. This is the menu. This is what you can order. This is what I'm going to eat. Why would I want to do anything else? Well, don't you remember playing with or going out? No. Well, let me remind you. So the way that I remind them is, Cam has a hard time. Her job is much rougher than mine. She has, 4 of my kids are still in school. 1 is out. But she has to be, on the lever of, are you doing it? Are you not doing it? What are you doing now? It's rough. So when I get home, sometimes it's like she's overwhelmed in regards to, well, I did this, but now they're on this. And I'm not going to be like, why are they on that? I told, I can't beat her up for
she's
taking
surviving.
a breath. Yeah.
Right.
So I come home, I pull all the plugs. I take all the remotes. I put everything away. And I go, hey, listen, we need to be a family. Well, we are. Right. But not when you're doing this. And Lola's doing this. And Shadow's in the other room. And Mom's in the kitchen. And Skylar's got his headphones on. I'm like, that's not a family. Here's what a family is. Let's turn all this off. Let's just talk for a little bit. It doesn't have to be forever. But let's just remind each other of our humanity. Because right now, I don't see a lot of that going out there. This is just, it is what it is. It's like, this is the time we live in. This is the method of delivery. But in your home, you have a choice in that. And my choice is, hey guys, let's go outside, even if it's just us, or let's do this, even if it's just us. Well, that's not fun, right? But you know what? It's real. Yeah. As opposed to that weird game you like to play where I don't know what's going on. I'm like, let's go outside. let's pick a lemon, and then you run. I'll throw it at you. I don't know. It'll be good.
That's a good game, man. That is a good game.
That's a fun game, especially the rotten ones. Game.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you're the thrower, that's a really good game. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. Hey, James, so we've been on about 2 hours talking, and honestly, I mean, I've loved every minute of it, man. I mean, I enjoy talking to you. I love you like a brother, and I'm just I'm appreciative of the time that you've given us. And I'm appreciative of the time that Cammie has given us, because there's 4 kids back there somewhere.
Yeah.
So someone's taking care of business right now.
She's back there like this right now.
Something's happening.
Yeah.
That's right.
She's like, I got my arms up.
Right. The show is called Richest Men in Town. And, we end our show every episode with the same question. And we pose that question to you, James. What does it mean to you to be considered one of the richest men in town?
I mean, it's the same thought I had when you asked me. This is part of it. Knowing you, meeting Mike, having my family, living a life of worth as opposed to a life of want. Looking at my beautiful children going, hey man, as I am in my head, I did that. I helped with that. And look at them. That's all I want, man. Monetary advancement, that'd be cool, but beautiful children who will go forth in this world being raised, knowing the things that I'm giving them, that makes me, I'm a billionaire. You know, I have it all. I could be, like I said, again, I'm not ready. Don't get me wrong, but I could be done because I've met every accomplishment that I've ever hoped for. They're all in the other room except for the one that's at work, you know, and it's great. It's great. And my wife, hey man, that woman, I will never stop singing her praises, man. She alone is like, I mean, she is worth more than anything that I could ever do with this, you know, and I'm pretty adept at doing stuff, but I can't do that. You know, I couldn't earn that ever. So that's why if you consider me the richest man, there's my worth right there.
Well, I do consider
we do.
Absolutely, man. And, you know, I think that it's funny, the journey that we've been on tonight together, we've been able to talk about a lot of different things, but James, you are one of those people that I look up to and admire, and I'm grateful for who you are. So keep on keeping on. Don't check out, because we need to do this again. And we need to drag that whole brood down here to San Diego and get together, right?
Hey man, definitely. Because you know what we like? We like the ocean. We're an ocean family, so
we got it. We got one of those down here.
Yes, we do. Yes. You know, I lived in San Diego for the first, well, not the first two, but from 3, 4, 5 till 5, I lived in Ocean Beach.
Ocean Beach.
Yeah. All right, James. Well, hey, before Tyler gets all big-headed because he called you onto the show and you crushed it, I just want everyone to know that I called it in the pre-show that this was going to be crushed.
Nice.
And you did not disappoint, brother. I appreciate. Nice. Here's the thing. Like, I know when I've got a good show, when I've got pages of notes.
Yeah.
And not only do I have pages of notes, I've got some phrases.
Yeah.
Right? I've got some Jamesisms, if you will.
Nice.
And they're going to be bouncing around in my head. And that's actually how Mike Freeman becomes a better person.
Amen.
Yeah.
When I fill my head with things like that, and I chew on that, and I think about that, and I think about what you said here, and I think about your experience with your dad, and I think about what your wife means to you, all of those things are going to help me be the kind of dad, the kind of husband that we all need to be.
Yeah.
Right? Because our kids are better than any of us ever were, and they deserve the best.
That is a fact.
Right.
Yep.
That's
yep.
it.
So I tip my hat to you, man. You are an amazing guy. And Tyler said before, it's this thing's funny, right? We've never met in person. James, I'd go to war with you, man.
Mike, likewise, man. I was going to tell you, I'm like, it's like I've known you for far longer than the 2 conversations we've had, man. So very cool.
Yep. And I'm cool with all of us going down and crashing the Gould's place. And
let's do it. Hotel Gould is open for business. Come on now.
There you go.
Hey, man, we love you. I'm grateful for you. Tell that family we said hi and that we love them. And let's do this again real soon. Yeah.
All right, man. And hey, keep in touch. I appreciate it, Ty, so much.
Absolutely. Love you, brother.
All right. Love you guys. Thank you so much. I'm honored. Thank you.
Good idea, Ernie. A toast to my big brother George, the richest man in town.